What's going on YouTube? This is ParkerLad88 coming at you with another video, and in this video guys we have another installment of Defense Against the Grid, and this time we're going to be tackling RJ. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that we have to talk about when it comes to learning how to fight against a certain character is what kind of character that character is. And for a character like RJ, that isn't exactly set in stone. RJ is what you would refer to as an all-rounder character. He is a jack of all trades that has a bunch of different moves for a variety of situations, between having a decent projectile, decent normals, between his crouching medium, standing medium, the fact that he has a move that completely ignores zoning and that can lead to a full screen punish. Like, you can use this to punish projectiles, you can use this to like whiff punish characters for doing things that are unsafe from like a distance, which leads to like happy birthday opportunities as well. He has his knee drop, which not only is an overhead but can also cross up at certain ranges, leads into a stagger state, and also has a safe follow-up for it as well. All these things not only allow you to play RJ any kind of way that you want, but it also makes him a very difficult character to fight against because he doesn't really have any like set in stone concrete exploitable weaknesses that like some of the other members of the cast do. And unlike other jack of all trade characters, RJ is he's still good. He's still good. Like most jack of all trade characters, it's like they don't excel in any one thing, but RJ kind of excels at a lot of different things. But that being said, what we're going to do today is go over some of RJ's not really exploitable weaknesses, I would say, but different things you can do to combat RJ. So the first thing that I want to talk about are going to be RJ's auto combos, more specifically his light auto combo and his medium auto combo. Because RJ, unlike other characters, can whiff cancel his auto combos, and what that basically means is that you don't have to connect with anything in order to do the next part of a move. That basically allows him to fish with an overhead from roughly about right here, which he can then go into combos from. The same thing applies to his medium auto combo, as you guys can see. Now, as strong of tools as they are, there are some things you can do in order to combat this. Let's start with his light auto combo. His light auto combo actually does have a gap in it in order to compensate for the fact that it leads into an overhead. With proper timing, you can actually execute an EX in order to deal with this. So if we set up RJ, and then we save that, and then we play it back, you can see that you can actually EX through it. So that is one way to deal with the light auto combo. The fact that it leads into an overhead means that you have to block it high, but with proper timing and a little bit of practice, you can actually EX through that gap. It's difficult to do, for sure, if you want to take that risk, but the idea is like right when the elbow is about to come down and hit you, that's where the gap is, and then you can do the EX out of that. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is his medium auto combo. This is a lot easier to fight against, and a lot of this stuff I'm telling you guys is like, when you're dealing with RJs, assuming that he doesn't have an assist to cover him. Once you actually start getting into like amateurish level with RJ, and you get used to actually putting assists behind him, it makes it a lot more difficult to combat these things, but just some things to keep in mind if you ever notice like an RJ doesn't have like an assist on hand or something like that. Moving into the medium auto combo. The medium auto combo has two parts. You have the first part, and then you have the second part, which leads into an overhead. You can actually push block the first part of his auto combo, and then if you have a long enough reaching normal, you can actually punish him when he tries to go for the second part, like just a recovery because he's too far away and he can't go into anything. So if we set him up, and then go into it, the part you want to push block is the first part. That'll put him right here, he'll whiff it, and then you can just do like a button. As you guys can see, like that. So that's one thing you want to keep in mind for his medium auto combo. You push block the first part. After he does the second knee, you push block him, putting him far enough away that he can't actually connect with the overhead, and then you just practice doing your best punish on RJ for that, but just make sure that he doesn't have an assist covering him when he does that. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about for RJ is going to be his Ignition Knuckle. So, the Ignition Knuckle is a really, really good move because it's essentially like a full screen whiff punish, or if your opponent throws out a projectile, you can just shoot yourself across the screen and you can get an easy follow-up with his crouching medium, which also works as an OTG, and then you just go combo out from there. But one thing you guys might not know is that the ignition knuckle is actually unsafe. So if you just block it, you can just go for really any old punish from there. So that's something for you guys to keep in mind. Now, when you start fighting like more experienced RJs, they're not just going to randomly throw it out a whole lot. But the good thing is, when you have characters who don't really need to commit all that hard for the projectiles, like Kimmy, then you can actually start baiting the ignition knuckle, because her recovery on her standing medium is actually pretty quick, and you can use this to bait the ignition knuckle because they think that you might fall into that kind of zony lull where you just start chucking projectiles and stuff like that all the time, you know, right? But if you know the matchup, you can try and bait it, right? The RJ comes flying across the screen, you just block it, and then you can just, you know, go for any old punish. The same thing kind of applies for Mastodon Sentry. Mastodon Sentry, if he has 2 bars, you can bait the RJ by throwing out 1 projectile, and then you can just do a counter super. So that's something that you can do. Once again, not the biggest thing, but just in case you guys didn't know, Ignition Knuckle is unsafe, and if you block it, you can just go for an easy punish. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about for RJ is going to be to his knee crush. So this is a very belligerent move that you'll see a lot of RJs do, because the follow-up that he has from that is relatively safe. Unless you have somebody who just has a far enough reaching normal, RJ can pretty much throw this out all the time and he will keep himself safe. Especially with assist behind him, it makes it very difficult to deal with. The only way you can really combat RJ outside of blocking it, but you know you don't want to block it forever, right? Because you don't want to get caught in that pressure, is to work on practicing your anti-airs. If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. Anti-airs are free damage in this game because you cannot block launchers, like if you're trying to like jump in on your opponent or something like that. So the one thing that you're going to want to practice with RJ is a couple of things. You're going to want to practice anti-air in the knee crush, and then the follow-up as well. Right? And then if he does the follow-up, you block it. Well, that was a counter, but you guys get the idea. Like, you want to practice doing anti-airs for both parts. Either you block the first part, you wait for them to do the wolf crush, and you try and anti-air that, or you try and anti-air the actual knee crush. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that when you start fighting more experienced RJ players, they will actually start mixing this up with their normal jump-ins as well. So you need to keep a keen eye on what the RJ player is doing, and then you also want to keep an eye on that RJ's playstyle. If they're throwing out the knee crush like a whole bunch, then odds are you can count on that timing. But if you notice that your opponent is mixing up the knee crush with just normal jump-ins, then you're going to have to be a little bit more observant and, you know, look for those opportunities to punish them and practice your launches, of course. So you definitely do want to do both. And that, guys, is going to be this episode of Defense Against the Grid featuring RJ. Those are all of the things that, as far as advice, that I can give you about how to combat RJ's more common stuff. If you guys have any helpful hints as far as your experience with RJ and how to combat against them, please drop it down in the comments, you know, so that you can share your experience with other people. But that, for now, will do it for me. This is Parker Ladd, and I will see you guys next time.